Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This story takes place back in 2016. In my country, you must join the military after turning 18 at the end of high school or after finishing university studies. You serve for 9 to 12 months. I decided to enlist after my university studies at 25. It was a bittersweet experience because of bullying and because I met my now wife. Basic training was great. I got to know great people while training for 30 days together. We woke up at 5 a.m. every day and trained until 6 p.m. The routine was exhausting but helped build discipline I never had before. Our drill sergeant was strict but fair, pushing us beyond our limits but never breaking our spirit. After basic training, we went to our units in different cities. I ended up at a decent unit, but there were a few rotten ones among them. My unit was stationed in a small town near the border, where we monitored communications and handled basic security. The barracks were old but clean, housing 48 soldiers, split into 4 rooms. In the military, there are official ranks, but also the unofficial rank of old-timer. The more time you spend as a soldier, the more your status goes up. Old-timers pick better chores, better hours of guard duty, and can slack off. The newer you are, the more things you do. It's a rule. I understand since they've been there longer, they have more privileges. Some people think they are rulers. The worst offenders were a group of 5 guys who had been there for 7 months already. They controlled the unwritten hierarchy with an iron fist. My first 2 months in the unit were hellish. They gave me all their chores, didn't respect my cleaning efforts, and insulted me for being overweight. I'm not confrontational and tend to binge eat when upset. I'm patient. Even if I talk to superiors, they'd give the bullies a slap on the wrist, and I'd be worse off. One night they made me clean the bathrooms with a toothbrush while they played cards and laughed. Another time they hid my uniform before inspection, causing me to get 3 extra night shifts as punishment. I kept detailed notes of every incident in a small notebook I hid under my mattress. Things turned around. The soldier running the military recreation center was leaving, so they needed a replacement. I got the job because no one else wanted the responsibility of balancing books and dealing with complaints. My immediate supervisor, Lieutenant Garcia, told me to keep things running smoothly and not cause problems. There are 3 important things about the military recreation center. There was a debt ledger. If soldiers didn't have money, they could buy things and pay later. The recreation center stocked everything from coffee and snacks to toiletries and magazines. We even had a small TV with a DVD player that soldiers could use during their free time for a small fee of €2 per hour. Every month, I met with the superior to balance books and plan supplies. Officially, the balance was perfect. Unofficially, there was a €35 deficiency due to bad management. Each new person had to deal with this problem. The previous manager warned me about this unofficial debt, saying it had been passed down for at least 6 rotations before him. To get discharge papers, soldiers needed a signature from the recreation center confirming they paid their debts. No signature meant no discharge until they paid. This system gave the recreation center manager surprising power within the unit's social structure. Would I pay the deficit myself or pass it to the next victim? Neither. I had power now. I had to stop this cycle with help from my bullies. I spent 2 weeks learning the inventory system and studying past purchase patterns. I noticed my 5 bullies were the biggest spenders, especially on coffee, energy drinks, and late-night snacks. One of them wanted espresso at 1 a.m. when outside ordering wasn't possible. I gave him watered-down coffee and thanked him for paying part of mine too. He complained about the taste but had no alternative since the nearest town was 5 miles away and off-limits after 10 p.m. When a superior asked why the coffee was weak, I told him we were low on supplies and the next shipment was next week. 4 bullies wanted coffee and snacks but had no money. I took my time, told them a superior had priority, and helped them when I felt like it. After waiting for 15 minutes, a bully complained about the wait. I told him captain's orders come first and I'd be with him soon. The captain had no idea I used his name regularly as an excuse for delays. They got cold toast with half ingredients and coffee missing about a quarter. I collected that quarter in a cup, made another cup without new coffee, and sold or drank the fifth one. I developed a precise system of skimming that was nearly impossible to detect. I measured each packet of coffee with a spoon to track inventory. Each packet had 40 to 50 spoonfuls. I documented every purchase meticulously, but added small upcharges to my bully's tabs. When a bully told me to stop talking about money and that he'd pay when he wanted, I told him it wasn't a problem and I just needed to note it. Then I added 15% to his total. We only recorded names, dates, and total amounts, not each item. They never noticed. I created a second private ledger where I tracked the actual costs versus what I charged them. The difference went straight to covering the €35 deficit. My schemes balanced the books and made my bullies pay for my food and drinks. I reminded them of their debt, but they shrugged it off. They were too arrogant to check details. By the fourth month of my new position, the deficit was completely covered, but I continued my system. The extra money now went into a community fund I created for soldiers who genuinely couldn't afford necessities. 3 younger recruits benefited from this secret fund when they couldn't afford toiletries before payday. The best part came when they needed my signature for discharge. A bully was shocked when I told him he owed €120. He said that couldn't be right. I reminded him I mentioned his balance several times and showed the ledger. He said he never bought that much. I told him he came to the recreation center almost daily for 3 months and it adds up. He demanded to see itemized receipts, which I told him we didn't keep for more than 2 weeks due to storage limitations. Another bully was confused how his €50 debt became €85. I explained that coffee, snacks, and energy drinks cost money. I asked if he thought those were free. He threatened to report me to the captain, but I reminded him that the captain had personally reviewed and approved our bookkeeping system last month. They realized they couldn't leave without paying. Some tried to argue, but the ledger was there. Some went to my superiors, who told them rules were rules. All debts must be paid before discharge. Lieutenant Garcia backed me completely, saying the recreation center's books were the cleanest he'd seen in years. They paid up. Some borrowed from family or friends, others used savings. The ringleader of my bullies had to sell his expensive watch to cover his €170 debt. Everyone cleared their debt. Word spread quickly through the barracks about my strict debt collection. Newer soldiers started paying up front rather than running tabs. The old-timers' power dynamic shifted as they lost their financial leverage over the recreation center. By the time I finished my service, the books balanced with no €35 deficiency for the next person. The cycle stopped and my bullies funded my snacks and drinks for months. I trained my replacement thoroughly, explaining the proper inventory management system and warning against allowing the deficit to return. I handed over a surplus of €20 to be used for improvements to the recreation center. When the last bully paid and left, I had the best coffee the recreation center could make. It tasted like victory. 2 years later, I received a letter from my replacement thanking me for breaking the cycle. The recreation center had expanded its offerings and now had a small library and new coffee machine bought with a continuing surplus. The culture of bullying had significantly decreased as the power of the old-timers diminished. I'm 21 years old and still living with my parents. The economy is insane right now, and finding a place to live where I can still buy food and water is impossible where I live. My fiancée stays with me too, which helps with expenses, but we're both stuck here until I finish my degree. My mother thinks she owns anything in the house. Even if I bought something with my own money, her argument is that it's under her roof, so it's hers too. I've heard this my entire life. Back in September last year, I bought a mini fridge for my bedroom. I was tired of sharing the main kitchen fridge, especially since I buy my own food and drinks. They're healthier than what my parents buy, and my mother always makes me pay her back for any of her food that I eat. So I bought my own stuff and kept it separate. For months, it worked. I didn't have anyone taking my food or drinks, so I never thought about security. That changed a couple weeks ago. I stopped by the grocery store after work and bought a small cheesecake. I've been wanting something sweet for days, and I finally had enough cash. I also picked up sodas to drink throughout the week. I put everything in my mini fridge before leaving for work the next morning. After getting home from a long shift, all I wanted was to shower, eat some cheesecake, and watch a movie. But when I opened my mini fridge to grab water, I noticed something wrong. It is gone. Where is my cheesecake? So were 4 sodas. I asked my fiancée about it. I asked her if she had eaten the cheesecake or taken any sodas from my fridge. She told me she hadn't touched anything because she took a long shower and then napped all day since yesterday was tiring. I went to check the family fridge. There was my cheesecake and sodas sitting there. I grabbed everything and put it back in my mini fridge before trying to find who took it. My brother was at school all day, and my dad worked an extra shift. That left my mother. When I asked if she took my cheesecake and sodas from my mini fridge, she got offended and said she would never steal from her daughter. I left it alone since I got my stuff back. That night, my fiancé and I ate some cheesecake and I had a soda. The next morning, my mother burst into my room yelling. My fiancé, who was asleep, woke up scared. My mother yelled about how I stole from her. I was barely awake. When I asked what she meant, she yelled about the cheesecake and sodas. She said they were expensive and I stole them from her. She wanted to share them with my father that night since it was his first day off in a week. I started laughing. This wasn't new. She blamed me for stealing what she took from me before. My laughter made her more angry. She said it wasn't funny and told me to give the items back. I laughed harder. I told her I bought those things. We already ate the cheesecake, and I was keeping my sodas. She told me to pay her back for what I stole and said next time she buys things, she'll count them so she knows when I steal again. I stood up and grabbed my bag. I showed her the receipt from when I bought the items. I told her I bought these things because I've been working hard, and she wasn't getting any. Then I had an idea. I said I would buy another cheesecake because I had money for it, and told her she wasn't getting any of that one either. I asked my fiancé to check how much a fridge lock would cost. My mother grabbed my shoulder, turned me around, and slapped me. She said I wasn't putting a lock on anything in her house without permission. I was shocked, but stood firm. I told her it was my fridge no matter whose house it was. I paid for it, and I could lock it if I wanted. My fiancé looked at my phone and said there was one online for cheap that would arrive in 2 days. I ordered it while my mother watched. I told her since I didn't have work for the next couple days, I'd watch all my things until the lock came. My mother walked out of my room, yelling to my dad about what a bad daughter I am and how I spoke to her. I heard her down the hall complaining about how I was treating her after everything she'd done. I laugh about this almost every day. When the lock came, I put it on my mini fridge right away. Now, wherever I go, whether to work or the bathroom, the keys go with me. If my fiancée stays home, she keeps the keys. My mother tried to open my fridge yesterday. The lock had scratch marks when I got home. She must have tried to pick it or break it. It worked though. I bought another cheesecake just like I said I would. My fiancé and I ate all of it. Some people might tell me to move out, but I can't right now. A 1-bedroom apartment anywhere in my state costs about $1,500 a month, not including bills and other expenses. I have medical issues that need care, which adds to my monthly costs. Adding everything up, we'd need about $2,500 a month minimum, and my fiancé and I can't afford that plus food. For now, I'm stuck here until I finish school and get a better job, but at least my mini fridge is locked, and my mother can't take my things anymore. Nice try, Mom. Hello, Reddit. I want to share a story my grandfather told me about his hometown after World War II. It involves a tree farmer, a corrupt mayor, and over 20 homes getting bulldozed. My grandfather returned home from the war in 1948 and barely recognized his hometown. He had left a tired, worn-down place back in 1942 when he went off to fight as a pilot, but what he found was completely transformed. Newly paved roads stretched across the landscape. There was even a traffic light downtown, and new homes seemed to sprout everywhere. My grandfather got lost trying to find his way back to the family farm because the main town road had been rerouted during his absence. What truly shocked him was seeing a housing development being built on his childhood friend's tree farm. This wasn't just any tree farm. It had been in his friend's family for at least 2 generations. My grandfather thought the developers must have made an offer too good to refuse, but something felt off about the whole situation. That evening during his welcome home dinner, my grandfather's suspicions were confirmed when my great-grandmother told him she wished John was still alive to be at the dinner. My grandfather was shocked. He told her that John wasn't dead. He told her John was still in Hawaii and he had received a postcard from him just 4 days earlier. The table fell silent as my grandfather explained that his friend John had been serving in the Navy in the Pacific Theater. While John was away fighting, his father had a stroke and died. His mother died less than a week later from a broken heart. For some reason, John was never told about their deaths. My grandfather asked if they were telling him that John didn't know his parents had died and didn't know someone was building houses on his farm. My great-grandfather told him this seemed to be the case. My grandfather left the table, ran outside, jumped into his father's Model T, and raced into town. He went to the telegraph office and sent an urgent message to John in Hawaii. John, your folks passed. Farm now being built on. Come quick. My grandfather never got a reply from John, but he figured his friend must have fainted from shock, then jumped up and ran to the Navy base to catch the first ship home. Less than 4 days later, John showed up in town, and he was furious. My grandfather saw John walk through the doors of the mayor's office like a hurricane. Everyone in the room looked like they'd seen a ghost. The desk clerk stammered nervously, trying to help John while asking him to calm down. He tried to explain that the mayor was busy that day. The mayor came out of his office to see what was happening. When he saw John, all the color drained from his face. Without saying a word, he turned around, ran back into his office, and locked the door. John shouted about how they had sold his farm, his family's farm. His voice echoed through the entire building, but he got nowhere at the mayor's office. John drove to the next town over and hired a lawyer. What followed was a 7-year court case that showed a web of corruption and greed. After John's parents died, officials said they couldn't contact John and thought he was dead too. So when an out-of-state developer wanted to build homes in the area, the mayor gave them permission to start building on John's farm for what my grandfather called a hefty kickback. The developer had already pre-sold many of the homes they were building, but because of John's lawsuit, they couldn't finish building. This led to more lawsuits from the buyers who had put down deposits. In court, John's lawyer showed the postcards John had been sending regularly from Hawaii, proving he was alive and easy to contact. The lawyer asked the judge if they were expected to believe that nobody thought to tell John of his parents' deaths or ask about his wishes for the family property, especially when the town's postal service got his regular postcards. The mayor weakly said that they had thought John was lost in combat, like many other local boys who never came home. John called him a liar, telling him he knew he was alive and just wanted the money. The court showed that the mayor had gotten over $5,000 in bribes from the developer, an enormous sum in those days. Records showed that the mayor had hidden John's postcards from the town council and made fake documents saying John was thought to be dead. In the end, the mayor was sent to jail for 8 years for fraud and corruption. The developer went bankrupt trying to pay all the home buyers whose houses would never be completed. The town also had to pay damages. The final judgment gave John close to $45,000 in damages, which would be equal to over $752,000 today. But more importantly to John, the court ordered that the partially built homes be torn down and the farm restored to how it was before. My grandfather said John was happy. The day the bulldozers came to tear down the half-built houses, John stood watching with tears in his eyes. He told my grandfather that it wasn't about the money, but about what was right. He told him the land was his family's legacy. My grandfather told him that he understood. The tree farm grew again under John's care. He never married or had children, but he put all his heart into that land. Before he died in 1999, he arranged for the farm to become a nature reserve, making sure it would never be built on again. My grandfather has gone back to his hometown a few times over the years to visit John's grave and check on the old tree farm. He says it's now a beautiful forest with walking trails and a small plaque telling the story of how it was saved. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.